This reading challenge has definitely taught me a lot about myself as a reader, for sure. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Oh, it's so rainy and gloomy outside, I'm obsessed. Apologies if I'm sounding a little bit nasally. I have been recovering from the good old influenza the past 2 weeks because apparently I had nothing better to do with my spare time and I've pretty much been bed rotting. So I've dosed myself up with some nose spray, some paracetamol, and I've got a hot cup of tea. So fingers crossed we will be okay for this video. I went on a first aid training course and I think I caught flu off someone who had it whilst they were there. So the good news is I'm fully first aid trained now, but the bad news is I came back with a flu. It's the main reason why this video is a little bit delayed with coming out, so I just wanted to apologize about that. So back in August and through the first week of September, I decided to participate in a reading challenge because I wanted to spice up my reading pattern a little bit. So I headed onto Google and I looked for some book challenges and I came across Read the Rainbow, which is a challenge I've personally never seen before. And I thought it was quite unique and different. So I thought I would give it a go. And literally it's where you just choose a book where the cover corresponds to a color of the rainbow. I'm going to take you through each book that I read for the color of the rainbow. I didn't read them in this order. I read them randomly, but I'll take you through them in order for the sake of this video. As always, I'll tell you a little bit about them in case you want to add them to your own TBR, because who doesn't love a never-ending TBR? And then I'll talk about my thoughts and feelings in a completely spoiler-free way. So get comfy, get cozy, and let me take you through my bookish rainbow. Before I get into talking about the books, I do just quickly want to talk about why I'd recommend doing this challenge and some things I really liked and some challenges that I faced. This challenge 100% confirmed that I am definitely a seasonal reader slash mood reader. No idea if I just made the term seasonal reader up, but for me, I personally really struggle with the idea of reading a certain genre outside of its time of year that I would typically read it in. For example, in spring and summer, I love certain fantasies and I also love like happy romances. Autumn, I really love my cozy reads, cozy fantasy, cozy romance, dark academia, all of that sort of stuff. Halloween, I love my thrillers and my horrors. And then Christmas time, I love my festive reads, festive murder mysteries. I feel like I have to have the vibes to match the book for me to feel 100% immersed in the story. I remember at one point I was trying to read a dark academia type book and it was like the end of August where the sun was still beaming through the window and my brain was like, okay, this just isn't vibing the way that the vibes should vibe. I was reading about dark, eerie university castles and being out in the Highlands with the mist and stuff, and the sun was literally beaming in my eyeballs. Can do it with a couple of genres, like thriller I wasn't too bad with, but there are definitely some books, especially more the cozy reads and the autumnal reads, that I really did struggle with when the sun was beaming. I really would recommend doing this challenge because I think it really encourages you to pick different genres, because obviously you might only have a couple of colors for each color of the rainbow. So only having a selective few really makes you pick up the books that you probably wouldn't read anytime soon, and rather than push them away, it was actually encouraging me to pull them forward and read them now instead. And as you'll see in this video, there are some books that I sadly just didn't get along with, and it means I am able to now donate them and I've cleared some space for more books in the future. And with that being said, let's get into talking about the books that I read. Starting off with red, we have Cartridge, A Book by Its Murder, which I think is the most iconic book title I've ever seen. And this is a cozy murder mystery slash thriller. If you're looking for a short read set in a small town, which is also set in a bookshop by the way, following a group of close friends trying to solve a murder, then this book might be for you. It follows the story of our main character called Arlo, and she runs a bookstore with her best friend Chloe. One morning, Arlo is just on her way to work and she notices a bunch of police outside and also a body. And the body actually belongs to an author who they know who was actually supposed to be doing a book signing at their shop. The police treat it at first as a suicide, but then they find some evidence that links to the fact that it was actually a murder. And Arlo's best friend Chloe is taken in for questioning because she was there around the time that the murder happened, and they are basically treating her as the main suspect. Arlo believes that this is just all absolute donkey ball. So the whole story is about Arlo and the older ladies from the book group coming together to help try and bail Chloe out of jail. One thing I really enjoyed about this book was the fact that it was set in a bookshop, and it really did have that cozy vibe to it that it said it was going to have. A lot of thrillers I've read in the past have just been in some form of institution or out in the middle of nowhere or in some form of abandoned house or something like that. So it was really nice to have that bookshop setting. I mean, who doesn't like reading about bookshops, right? There was also a parrot in the bookshop called Faulkner. He was absolutely hilarious. Birds are my favorite animal. I've had them my whole life, and the idea of having a bird in a bookstore has always been a dream for me. So to actually see this in a book, loved it. Also loved how close the characters were in this book. You could really tell they were a good bunch of friends and they really wanted to do everything that they could for Chloe. Unfortunately, they were literally the only things that I kind of enjoyed about the book. First of all, I just don't think small town always works with thrillers. There are only a handful of characters that we're following in the story, and very quickly certain people are being struck off the suspect list because they either have really good alibis or there's just hardcore evidence that they weren't around when it happened. So quite early on in the story, you're only left with just a couple of people left, and then very quickly you could then guess out of which one it kind of is. Don't get me wrong, in thrillers, I have seen it where you really think it is somebody and then the author will completely change the direction. And that is when it makes a really good thriller. But that didn't happen in this one. Early on in the book as well, there is a bit of dialogue between some characters who they suspect it might be. And they say something that just really makes something very obvious. And to me, I just don't think that should have been in the book. And tell me why there was no closure in this book as well. At least I don't remember there being any anyway. For me, it's so important that in a thriller that the murder is concluded. You find out what happened, but they don't explain how they actually executed the plan and made it all happen. All of those empty questions just make me feel, well, bit sad really. Don't like the fact as well you didn't really get to know much about the characters. Like, you knew the main character worked in a bookstore, you knew her best friend, etc. But there was no description really of what characters looked like, how old they were. I'm a big believer that characters can make or break books, and it just felt a little bit like, well, who are these people at times? Despite being a short book as well, I personally found like it was dragging a little bit. I just felt like it wasn't coming together. I decided to give this book 2 stars. I don't think it's a book that I would personally recommend, and I also just didn't really enjoy everything that was going on. For Orange, I read The Little Coffee Shop of Kabul, and this is a literary fiction. If you're looking for a book that's about a group of women coming together to help each other out through really difficult times, then this is a book that you may want to pick up and give it a go. And this book actually follows 5 individual women, and it's about all of them coming together through really difficult times in their life to help each other through secrets and times of uncertainty. There's one woman in her mid-60s, and she's the one that owns the coffee shop. Then there is an American lady who moved, and she now works in that coffee shop. There is another American who moved there, and she ended up marrying a really wealthy man while she's been living there. Then there is a British lady who is a journalist, and then there is another lady called Yasmina, and she's actually pregnant, and a group of people come and collect her as a debt repayment. But when they find out she's pregnant, they chuck her out of the car, and that is when the character Sunny, the one that works in the coffee shop, finds her and takes her back there so she can stay there and help look after the baby, and obviously Yasmina as well. This was a very wholesome read for sure, and it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things that the characters were going through. You really could feel for them. I really like the fact that we follow multiple characters and everything that they're going through, their inner monologues, their worries, their secrets, what it is that they're uncertain about. Found it really interesting learning about the culture. The amount of emotions in this book as well is insane, and there were some really sad moments in this book as well that I will remember. However, again, tell me why this book dragged. I just think the book was so long for what it needed to be. I've been getting better at DNFing books, and I was very close. But I think the reason why I didn't is because when I finished that chapter, that's when something started happening, and I just really wanted to figure out what was going to happen to everyone as well, because there was some like really big secrets in this book as well. And how many times does this character put her hand on her hips? I genuinely lost count. It just drove me a bit mad. It's like I enjoyed the concept and everything that was going on, but it just took forever for me to get through, and because of that I have decided to rate this book 2 stars. I loved the ending. I loved the relationships between the characters and the development of the relationships as the story goes on, but for me the pace was off. It took too long, I think, to get to the good points in the book, and it just didn't really tickle my fancy. Moving on to Yellow, and I decided to go for a slice of life literary fiction this time, and it was Days at the Murasaki Bookshop. Again, if you're looking for a short read about going through some difficult times in life but overcoming those situations, getting back on your feet again, and overall just creating a sense of closure, definitely recommend giving this book a go. Set in Japan, it follows our main character, who I believe is in her mid-20s. She discovers after 3 years that her partner has actually been cheating on her this whole time, and he is actually getting married to the girl, she ends up becoming depressed for quite some time. Because of this, she ends up quitting her job because this boy also works there. Her uncle basically ends up getting in contact with her and offers help and says, I've got a spare bedroom in my bookshop. Why don't you come and stay here? You can work in the bookshop and get back on track again. It's all about her finding her feet again. And there are lots of things in her life that she wants to get closure for. If I was someone who highlighted books, I would have highlighted so many quotes and just references in this book. Even though it's fictional, it's still very much relatable, and I absolutely loved that. There were just lots of really wholesome moments in this book, and I love books like this because it kind of just makes you feel really warm inside when characters start finding good things in their life again after going through really difficult things. Also loved the fact that she stayed in a really rusty secondhand bookshop that's very historical and very meaningful to her uncle. Again, however, third time. I know it's not looking too good right now, but I promise this book challenge does get better, I swear. This story just went in so many different directions that it ended up just really confusing me. This book just felt choppy to me. I think that's the best way to describe it. One minute we were reading a chapter about something and it felt like it was leading to somewhere. Next chapter, something completely different was going on. I think it was just very much showing us everything our character was getting up to. But for the first maybe 40% of the book, it's about our main character and finding her feet again. But then randomly out of nowhere, the story just goes in a completely different direction. It's a very wholesome direction, don't get me wrong, but essentially a character comes into our main character's life again, and it's all about them two kind of creating closure between the two of them. But for me, I just thought it was really random. It very much makes you realize, you know, don't judge something about someone and where they've been and what they've been getting up to without knowing the full context, because there's a very big reason as to why this person disappeared from our main character's life. But for me, I just thought the way they interacted was really unrealistic. You know, when someone's been gone for a long time, I don't think you just act like besties again, especially when there's been that kind of uncertainty between the two characters. Dialogue was really blunt and it just didn't really make any sense. Like, it was a very wholesome situation, but executed very poorly, I think. It just confused my brain. It doesn't take much though. Decided to rate this book 2 stars as well. Again, very wholesome, very quick to read. I think I finished it in 1 or 2 sittings. With books like this, I think I would much rather recommend books like the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, because I think they do this sort of stuff really, really well. Finally, a positive book. For green, I read The Spell Shop, and even though the cover has quite a few colors on, the naked hardback is pure dark green, so that's why I went for this one, and I really wanted to read it before the end of the year. If you're looking for an extremely cozy and heartwarming story featuring mythical creatures, spell books, and a talking spider plant who is the most iconic character I think you'll ever read about in your life, then I would 1000% recommend reading this book. Read it just for Kaz. It follows a story about our main character called, I believe it's pronounced Keela, and she has a talking spider plant companion called Kaz. They live in the city of Elysium and they work in this big library. One day there's this revolution, the library ends up burning down, so she and Kaz grab a handful of spell books and escape. She doesn't really know where to go because the library was her home and her parents passed away. The only thing she can think of is going back to her childhood home on a little island where they owned a cottage, and she knows that the parents left that house for her. They head back to the island, find the cottage. It's very overgrown, so they sort it all out, clear it all out, and she basically restarts her life there. The only thing is she very quickly begins to realize that she needs to find food and she needs to be able to survive. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't really have anything other than Kaz and this cottage. So they basically have to make it work. But the only way to do that is to use the spell books to grow crops. And by the way, did I mention that using spells is kind of illegal? Keela ends up speaking to some locals, including a very handsome neighbor who you will find is the sweetest male character you will probably ever read about in a book. I love him so much. Who explained that since she's been gone, the people used to come to the island to help with the spells and the crops and the ocean and all that sort of stuff. They just don't visit anymore. So the island is really struggling. But essentially the whole story develops into Keela and Kaz working together to live, and also that choice between doing the right thing by using the spell books to bring life back to the island, but of course it's illegal and they shouldn't be doing that. And if anyone was to find out she was using those spell books, she would get into some serious trouble. This is probably my favorite book that I read in this whole book challenge, and probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Absolutely loved it. It was so magical, so whimsical, and just so wholesome. I love the fact that it incorporates so many cozy elements into this book, but it also actually has a really interesting plot. The humor in this book was top tier. Kaz is so funny. Both of them just have the greatest banter, and they really bounce back and forth off one another. It's so funny, but at the same time you really can tell they love and care for one another. I just love them so much. I loved all of the villagers that our characters meet as well. They're very inclusive. Everyone just loves each other and wants to help each other. There's also a lot of emotional build up in the story as well, because she's kind of reminiscing a lot about her parents and being in the cottage and childhood memories. But I rated this book 5 stars. It was so magical, so wholesome, very whimsical. Just loved every single thing about this book. I definitely recommend it, especially being in autumn and being in cozy season. For blue, I decided to go with a magical realism because I cannot get enough of these books, and I decided to read Before Your Memory Fades, which is book 3 of the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. If you're looking for short but very emotional and moving reads about going back in time to speak to loved ones that are typically no longer around anymore, then I definitely recommend these books. Set in Japan, there are certain cafes that allow you to go back in time and speak to these loved ones. The biggest rule is that you only have the time it takes until your coffee goes cold, and the other rule is that no matter what you do in the past, it doesn't affect or change anything about the present or the future. Customers actually get put off by this in the book, but it's the idea that, you know, it's about creating closure. It's about being able to say something to someone for the last time again. Like, you would want to take up that opportunity. Each book has 4 different stories in there following who it is, who they want to meet, and why they want to go back into the past. I rated this one in particular 4.5 stars because in my opinion, I do prefer Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I did rate that 6 stars because of how sentimental it was for me as a reader. Apologies if you can hear my boobies having a natter in the background. The books give you those magical vibes, but also very much still relatable because you may have gone through some experiences that the characters in the books have gone through. You can read them as standalones, and each book will explain everything that you need to know about the cafe and how everything works and all of the rules. But I do recommend reading them in order because they are interconnected and there are characters that you will see pop up across each book. They also have plot twists in there as well. Like, you don't expect these type of books to have them, but they do, and they are so good. Every book has made my jaw drop in a really emotional and good way. I honestly couldn't recommend these books enough. Now, for these next 2 colors, I'm going to really need you to use that amazing reader imagination of yours because I really struggled to match the colors for the rainbow on this one. Let's just pretend that what you're seeing are the actual colors, okay? For Indigo, we have Nightshade, which is a murder mystery romance. This one in particular is the Works edition, and this is the one that has the really cool sprayed edge. If you're looking for a really easy to read dark academia murder mystery, then I definitely recommend giving this book a go. Dual POV, and it follows our main characters Ophelia and Alex. Ophelia is, I believe, 21 and Alex is 23. Both of these characters are attending the same university out in Scotland for very different reasons. Ophelia is actually going there because her parents were unalived in a helicopter crash, and she believes that it was actually orchestrated. She believes Alex's dad is the one that actually has something to do with it. Alex's dad is a very rich CEO / businessman from America. So let's just say they all kind of play some dodgy part in something dodgy along the lines. And Ophelia wants to go back to this university because she wants to question all the professors and find out what really happened. Ophelia is a very closed off, rough around the edge character, but she's really humorous. And then there's Alex, and you begin to really love him as the story goes on. But the problem is, he's in love with her, but she absolutely hates his guts. She wants nothing to do with him or his family. The whole story is essentially about Ophelia trying to find out what really happened to her parents. But of course, you've also got Alex trying to poke his nose in. And let's just say, it's about her also trying to avoid ending up in Alex's bed. And you can probably guess how that goes. It was so funny. The humor and the banter, again, between the characters was absolutely fantastic. I loved the amount of references there were in this book. Never in my life did I think I would see Club Penguin referenced in a book. Really loved the dark academia vibes too. You really did get that doom and gloom in the book with the university castle and being out in the highlands in the mist. Loved all the murder mystery elements to it as well. Genuinely really intriguing to follow. You really feel for Ophelia and all the emotions that she's going through. Despite being very closed off, she's not closed off in an annoying way. It's more of a humorous and sarcastic way. Alex has just got such an incredible personality, and he's very likable. You find out a lot about him that's really going to open your eyes eyes, and it's just the whole backstory behind him. I think I rated it 5 stars in a previous video. However, I forgot that that specific review was supposed to be for this video instead of being in like a reading wrap-up video. Whoops. But I have decided to give it maybe 3.75 to 4 stars. Upon reflection, I just feel like there were a few things that did kind of seem a little bit strange to me. The university in general, with the whole unalivings here, there and everywhere, just seemed a little bit out of place. How no one really noticed anything. I do feel like the romance was ever so slightly rushed. It kind of went from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. Ended on a really good cliffhanger, and I cannot wait to read book 2. For Violet, I decided to go with a dystopian, and of course it is Watch Me. If you're looking for an incredible dystopian series featuring powers, an incredible plot line, great plot twists, and just overall a really good story and character development, then I really recommend these books. Just make sure you read the Shatter Me series before you read Watch Me, because this book in particular is a spin-off set 10 years after the events of Shatter Me. In case you're unfamiliar with the series, there is essentially this whole government called the Re-establishment, and they basically want to reset humanity. They've forced people out of their homes to live in shelters and forced to work in factories. Everyone's basically living in poverty now. Education has been stripped and people are just really poor and unhappy now. There are sectors all over the world, and each sector has a leader, and they are very, very powerful people. Our main character, Juliet, is a very powerful individual, and she's actually being kept in one of the sectors in their asylum. They basically want to use her as a weapon because of how powerful she actually is. She wants absolutely nothing to do with this. She begins to realize a lot of secrets that the government is keeping from its citizens, and she realizes that she doesn't want any part in this whatsoever. She decides to take the Re-establishment down, along with pretty much everyone along with it. And honestly, you go girl. There are so many people she meets along the way, people that help break her out of the sector. They start their own rebellion and all these different things. So good. Please, please, please give it a read. A lot of people are a bit skeptical about reading it because of it being classed as a YA, but honestly, when you begin to read them and you see the things that the characters say and the things that they do, you'll honestly begin to realize it really doesn't feel that way whatsoever. You'll be surprised. The amount of plot twists in these books are absolutely incredible, and the story develops so good. Watch Me follows a character called James, who you will get to meet throughout the Shatter Me series. He basically ends up breaking into this secret base, and he wants to try and discover what it is that they're doing. He basically ends up bumping into a girl, and he knows that she's got a lot of information about this place because she's working there. So he decides to technically rescue her, because basically everything ends up going really, really crazy, and they end up having like a massive all-out fight in this big base. But he takes the girl with him, and he realizes that he can actually use her and kind of find out what's been going on. Let's just say things are gonna go down. I've rated the book 4.5 stars for now because I don't know how the other books are going to go. So I might end up rating the book higher if I'm not as keen on the other books, but we shall see. Banter is absolutely fantastic. I just love the way the author writes. She's so funny, and the way that she puts in everyone's inner monologues, it's just so humorous to read. It's so much fun. And the characters keep getting so much better as well with every book. I just loved how this story went, and I read it so quick. I think I finished it in like 2 sittings. Don't let the YA put you off. Please, please, please give these books a go. And that is my reading wrap up complete. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or let me know if they're on your TBR. I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.